Hey there, bibliophiles and those raising bibliophiles. Without ratings and warning labels, finding out which books are appropriate for your children to read is like navigating wild terrain without a map and a compass. I don't know about you, but I have been burned more than once handing my child a book that I thought was clean and appropriate for them to read. I'm a fellow mom, educator, reading specialist, and literary enthusiast trying to find great books for my children and yours to read. So if you're looking for a real review from a mom with a biblical worldview, then welcome and enjoy this week's book review. So this week's book review is book 6 from the Forgotten Five, a series. This is The Master of Disguise by Lisa McMann. And if you have been following me for a while, you know that I typically like to follow along with book series because this is often where I have been burned as a parent. I was talking with another family recently, and they've had similar things happen to them. The first several books seem great. Things are slipped in that you wouldn't expect as a parent. And so that is definitely something that's happened with the Forgotten Five series. But instead of just stopping in that one book, I really have been continuing to read it just to see where it goes. So this is book 6 in that series for review for today. And then there is one more projected to come out to finish out this series. And then at the end, it even tells the readers that there's one more book in this series. So before I get too far into my review, like I have been doing, I'm going to read just a little bit of the opening just to kind of give you a taste. If you are unfamiliar with this book series, I definitely want to encourage you to go to my website, holdingsteadfastreaders.com. You are going to get details for all the other books from this series, and specifically notes and mentions of which ones to be cautious of within the series and where things go and where things develop. Ultimately, I've had some misgivings about this series even from the beginning, but I know a lot of people like fantasy. Lisa McMann is very popular. Many have read her Unwanted series, and so I think it's important to continue finishing out this series. Also, to be fair and to do it justice in that regard. So before I get too much further in, let me just read a little bit. The first chapter is election season, and so again, if you're unfamiliar with the storyline, please kind of go back and see some of those earlier reviews and information about the books. All that information can be found at holdingsteadfastreaders.com. Look for book series and look for the Forgotten Five, and you'll find that in there. All right, 2 months after the librarian's explosive rescue from the palace dungeon, Brix came bounding across the monastery lawn from the scooter corral through the crunchy leaves to the back deck of the cottage. He slid open the door and stepped inside where preparations for a party were underway. Lada and Tenor were messily making a cake in the kitchen, and Elena and Seven were stringing a celebratory banner in the living area. Though the presidential election was less than 2 weeks away, the danger for the Forgotten Five had ramped up significantly in Estero, making thanks to Martum. The supers were trying to enjoy a normal autumn Wednesday to celebrate Bertie's 14th birthday. There are protesters gathered outside the main gate, Brick said urgently, breathing hard. A helmet dangled by its chin straps from his fingers, and he wore sunglasses along with a black buzz-cut wig that disguised his wavy honey brown hair. Porco came hopping and sliding down the stairs and careening around the corner to greet and sniff him. And that's a pig. No one immediately shared Brix's concern. There had been nonstop protests in Estero for months, mostly election-related, but some of the protests were against supernatural people who started to come out of the hiding lately due to Magdala's Palacio's support and encouragement. I thought I heard something, Tenor said, looking up, but I tried to tune it out. What are they chanting about this time? Protesters, schmocesters, Seven grumbled from the living area. He and Elena were trying to secure a happy birthday banner so it hung evenly, but it was frustratingly difficult because it went invisible every time he touched it. He kept having to climb onto a dining chair to adjust it, then let go of it to see if he'd put it where he'd wanted it, then get off the chair to get the full view of the banner, then climb back up and adjust it again. All of Seven's work over the past months to try to conceal items and people had led him to fully concealing everything that weighed less than 40 pounds. Things larger than that faded partially, like Bertie when he held her hand. She didn't mind. Elena glanced at Brix. How many protesters? Are they anti-Furte or anti-Magdala? Brix shook his head. Neither, he said. They're anti-us. Everyone stopped what they were doing. What do you mean? Leda asked. They're protesting supernatural people outside the monastery. Don't they realize they'd never get the monks' support on that? She had flour all over her sweatshirt and some on her cheek and nose from adjusting her glasses. Only a coincidence, I hope. Or do they think the monks are supers or something? What did the monks ever do to anybody? Tenor wondered. They're the best people Estero has. National treasures. Brick shook his head impatiently. No, you don't get it. The protesters are against us, kids, the children of the supernatural criminals. Holy explicative, Seven muttered under his breath. They couldn't have found us. Occasional rumblings against the Forgotten Five had been happening since Martam had released the damaging article that revealed the existence of the 5 children on the loose in Estero. It had described the kids as armed and dangerous. President Forte had referenced the article in a speech a few days later, telling his constituents in a dark voice, Magdala's other child is among them. Isn't that interesting? Why didn't she tell you about him? Murmurs had begun throughout Estero. In response, Magdala immediately changed the bio on her website to reflect that she had 2 sons, her recently adopted son, Pathun, and her son with Martam, 7. Then she released a statement saying the reason she hadn't disclosed the existence of 7 was because she was protecting him, and as he and the other children had been in hiding. But now that 7 was here in Estero, she was thrilled to be reunited with him. She assured the people that the children of the supernatural criminals were only interested in helping Estero become a better place, and that President Forte was recklessly endangering their lives with his lies. Magdala's supporters accepted the explanation, but a persistent group of Forte's followers latched on to the fear of a supernatural gang of armed child bandits and was determined to track them down and, well, no one was sure what they planned to do if they managed to catch them. There was a group protesting us at the park last week, Seven continued. I saw them when I was sneaking around searching for Bertie's snake. He found it, too, living a nice life in the lush grass near the fountain where Bertie had flown off the police horse and cracked her skull months before. It had been a nerve-wracking walk home with a venomous snake, invisible because it touched Seven, slithering between his fingers and around his wrist. The protesters there were just a bunch of kooky Forte followers who hate Magdala and decided to hate us kids too, because why not? Forte was telling his base that they need to be cautious and vigilant and watch out for us, as if we're out to hurt everyone. Forte's been riling them up, said Tenor, offering us as targets to go after. His eyes shifted, making his extra-large pupils shimmer when they caught a stream of late-afternoon sunlight coming through the window. Maybe the protesters decided to wander the streets today instead of staying in the park. He didn't add what they were all worrying about, that one of them had been recognized coming or going, because it wasn't simply Bertie's forensic sketch out there now. Actual photos of all the kids except 7 had been in newspapers over the past weeks. The photos had come from the video footage taken in the palace dungeon during the surprise attack to rescue the librarian. In the chaos, nobody had noticed that Forte had installed cameras sometime after they'd busted Elena out of the many months earlier. They'd suspected that Forte had been anticipating their return, but now they were sure. No, Tenor, Briggs insisted. The protesters aren't just wandering. They're stationed there, carrying posters with blown-up photos of our faces. As I was about to sneak in through the gate, someone recognized me from the photo, even with me wearing this wig, and almost got me. He caught his breath and tried once more to get them to understand what he was telling them. They definitely found us. We're not safe here anymore. And so that's a little beginning of the story. It continues on from there. We're picking up where the other stories have left off. This election is coming up between Magdala and President Forte. The characters are still aimed at bringing President Forte down. However, with their identities blown and their location revealed, it's not as easy as they once thought. The story opens with characters needing to find a new location after their identities and their location has been revealed to all the people of Estero. Desperate to find a place large enough to accommodate them all, they set their eyes on the estate that Troy and Martin had once shared. Sneaking in at night, the supers throw Martin out with all of his belongings, and they reestablish paid guards and make preparations for their next steps. The plot of this particular installment is pretty slow and focuses primarily on character and group dynamics as Commander Cazillo and her family join the group after they have been ousted. The election is only 11 days away at the opening of the story, and Birdie has a desire to go to the zoo. Cabot comes up with a way for all of them to enjoy a day at the zoo, but this escapade turns when some of Fierte's men are seen at the zoo, and the group soon learns that Fierte plans to hold a family-friendly rally at the zoo to try and drum up support for his campaign. The group of supers decide to disrupt this rally by letting a few animals loose. Their efforts mostly go as planned until Seven and Sasha go missing, later determined to be taken by Martin and a few men. They're gagged, tied, and left in the lion exhibit. The children and a few adults help track down Seven and Sasha and save them from the lions. The story ends with them all back at the estate to watch the results of the election. The story ends with a cliffhanger for the last book as the president uses a super named Hector to mesmerize the entire population of Estero, lying that President Fierte is the president-elect and Magdala is the loser. Cabot is actually the only one aware of what is actually happening since she has the same superpower as Hector. Definitely check out my written review at holdingsteadfastreaders.com. You are going to get a few more details that I don't present in the video, particular quotes, anything that might be troubling or noteworthy for parents so that they can make the right choice for their children of what's worth them reading. We do still see some romantic budding relationships between some of the characters. So again, go to holdingsteadfastreaders.com for more information about that. Overall, compared to the other installments in the series, this book is not full of messaging about gender ideology and negativity between adults and parents and their children, with the exception of Martin. The plot is definitely slower, which can be a barrier to some readers who are looking for more action. While Martin is a terrible character who doesn't care for the lives of the children, even his own son, I don't know about the messaging that people are essentially irredeemable. That is one sort of message presented in the story, is that there are people who are irredeemable, who are considered a lost cause. And that really isn't a good message that you would want for young readers. Troy, who once was on the same level as Martin, has managed to change, so that aspect is present in the novel because he does continue to make changes for the better, and that definitely conflicts with Martin. Martin's behavior definitely isn't one that I would condone or should be condoned, but putting in the mind of young readers that there are some people who are just irredeemable can be dangerous. Certainly from a Christian worldview, we know that that is not our place to make that determination about a person, but we must continue to speak truth and pray and love our enemies. So that is this week's book review. I hope that that is helpful to you as parents as you're trying to decide what's appropriate and not appropriate for your children to read. And I hope that you'll join me next week for another book review.